Hello everybody, we're going to just start up now. Welcome to sound recording with iPad, an introduction to digital sound recording with iPads. So I want to just thank all of our partners, the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, the Wasaga Beach Public Library, and also the Canada Council for the Arts. So welcome to today's live webinar workshop. We're going to talk about how to record sound with our iPads, which is a really cool technology, and the inputs that we can put into it and how it can work, and some of the best practices. And also at the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A as well. So definitely you can ask any questions as the live webinar is going. Just type them in and I'll address them all at the end. So let's start up. So I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Tom Sternad. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space. And here we go. So in terms of today, we're going to look at the digital sound, a technical overview. What does digital sound mean? What's the idea behind it? Direct sound recording with iPad. So how do we record directly into the iPad and how that works? We're going to look at recording with the Voice Memos app. So that app is available directly on an iPad. We'll look at the settings available, compressed versus lossless. Then we'll explore GarageBand and how that app can be used for recording vocals and instruments as well. And then we'll look at what's called an I/O, or input-output device, for recording. So there's different types that can be used. There's hundreds essentially. So we'll just give a look at how that works. And we'll look at the internal microphone versus external microphone. So plugging in a microphone into the iPad versus just using the internal built-in microphone. Then we'll look at optimum recording environment, how to best practices for recording your audio and how that can work. And then we'll also look at the concept of multiple takes for sound editing, how to get a few takes to make sure that you get what you need. So this is a great overall webinar for vocal recording. You can apply this to instrument recording as well, but vocal recording could be for podcasting, for music, just a voiceover that you might want to use for a video or film. So a lot of opportunities to use this, or even just sometimes to do memos and just how to record some notes for maybe something that you're writing or working on. So just a great overall tool in the iPad. And then once we finish, we'll look at a Q&A. So again, any kind of questions anyone has, just type them in, and we can discuss after as well. And the good thing is, by registering, you'll have access to this, so you can rewatch everything we go through, and through Crowdcast, so you can rewatch the course as well. So let's continue. So digital sound. What is digital sound? Technical overview. So essentially, digital sound consists of digital data representing the sound waves. So sound waves are, just as I'm talking now, they come out of my mouth, and they're electronic and different frequencies that occur. And then these end up being captured with a microphone or by the electronic signals produced by an instrument. So for example, the currency of the sound signals going through a guitar line, for example, right? So the microphones capture the frequencies that are going in the air, and that could be just as simple as the microphone that's on an iPad. So that's what digital sound is. So the data consists of ones and zeros. I think what's important to note here is that there isn't any room for what's called clipping or recording the audio too loud. So that means when things are over blown or too hot, or it's called clipping as well. So just as I'm talking now, if I talk really loud, it could overpower the audio and it could clip, and then what ends up happening, that ends up being a distorted signal. So we're going to try and do some examples of that too, just so that everyone can understand what that means. So in the past, analog recording on tapes, it really allowed for that loudness to occur. It wasn't really a distortion factor because it was just getting the data as analog material onto the tape. So with ones and zeros, what happens is at a certain point it just doesn't know how to represent the signal, and then you get into distortion, which you really can't salvage in sound unless you're going for that distortion on purpose, right? So just something to be aware of, that we really have to be careful with our overall audio levels, and we'll look at what that means and how that can look and stuff, and some samples of that. Okay, so direct sound recording with an iPad. So the iPads are great because you have this built-in microphone, and it allows you to record directly to the iPad using different apps. So we'll look at the built-in free apps that are just part of your iPad or iPhone. This applies to as well. And the idea here is that how we can just use that technology as it is, and also we can complement it with some additional microphones and technology too. So in this case, the microphone's directly above the camera, and it's designed to capture audio from a distance. So, for video conferencing or things like what we're doing today, if we had an iPad, we can capture it from a distance, right? So that's always quite useful. So in terms of what we're looking at, the iPad, so here's just the back of my regular iPad here. So what happens is the top here, where the camera is located, the top here is where the microphone is. And it's designed basically, the idea is that if you're talking to the camera, right, so the front camera right here, the microphone's right on top, and you'll see a little dot or a little hole there. It's right on top to capture, what you're saying, as if you're in a video conference, so you can be pretty close to it, right? And then the big difference is with a phone, it's going to be like on the side, right? So that's just something to note where the microphone is and kind of that placement. So we'll talk about the importance of that as we continue with this. Okay, so that's the direct sound recording. So now, recording with the Voice Memo app, right? So you can record these vocals with a Voice Memo app. And what's great about that is it's really intuitive. You're using that built-in microphone, and there's just a big red circle button on the top, and your voice starts recording. So you get the levels, you figure out kind of a distance, and what you're getting, you can record, and then you can play back. So the same applies for an iPhone, and just like I mentioned, with an iPhone, the microphone ends up being at the bottom of the phone. So just like how a regular phone works, right? So instead of having the on top of the iPad, right, it's going to be more of that exact, on the bottom of the phone is the microphone versus on the top of the iPad, right? So just something to keep in mind as you're getting, recording audio. If you go really close to the microphone, it could be distorting. If it's a good distance, then it won't distort and it'll be better audio quality. Okay, so let's look at how that works and recording on the iPad. So I'm just going to go right into here's my iPad screen. And what I'm going to do is go right into the voice memos. So I'm going to just click on that, and you'll see this opens up. And there's a big red button here on the bottom. So I'm just going to go with this camera here. So you can see this big red button. So I've opened up the voice memo. It's really simple. The red button's here, and then that's how we're going to start and stop recording. So by simply hitting that, I'm now recording. So this is a recording. Check, check, check. This is a recording. And then I simply can hit done, and that's it. So that's how we record. And now you can see I have what's called wave files here. And what that's doing is it's showing me the peaks and troughs of the wave file. So as I go louder and quieter, so this is a recording test, 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 that lets me see what I've done, right? So you can see the key here is none of these are really going all the way off the screen, right? So that's really important, is that wave file is contained within the parameter lowest, highest, and that means it's going to be good quality without distortion. And again, I didn't talk too close to the microphone, but here, let's give it a play back. I'm now recording. So this is a recording. Check, check, check. This is a recording. And then I simply can hit, right? And you can see then I got cut off. Simply hit done, right? So that's a recording. And that's it. We can then share this, which is really a great feature. So we can actually just go up to the top here. There's a share button. So I can hit that and I can share. So I can text message that to people. I can email it, right? I can airdrop it to another device, right? So if I want to work on an iMac, let's say, right, and I finish recording my my audio on the iPad, I can airdrop it to another Apple computer or my phone or someone who's around me that I want to just quickly send that voice recording to, right? So that could be a voiceover, it could be a vocal track, a demo, a narration, reciting poetry, anything you can think about, you can be doing with that voice memo tool. So it's really quite a nice tool. So that's the gist of that idea there. So now let's look at some of the settings that we can do too. So and then we'll explain what that means. So if we go to the settings icon, And then what we'll do is we're going to actually go scroll down. And if you find your voice memo, under voice memo, it's going to give us some settings, right? And then there's a couple settings here. And what it does is it allows us to decide whether we want to be compressed or lossless, right? So I'm just going to show you how we activate that. So we can either go to compressed, right? So in this case, you can see that compressed is check marked, or there's a lossless underneath. And that's, so we can just decide, do we want to be lossless or compressed, right? So what does this really mean, right? It's some new terminology. So you get into the settings, it's pretty much the two choices we have. We record, we stop, we can, send it off, we can do a little bit of editing. But that's a big thing. What does that mean, right? So let's have a look at what that means. So what it really means, compressed versus lossless. So these two choices are important because it also determines how much size the WAV file is, right? So whether it's fairly small, or it could be almost double the size when it's lossless. So compressed is making a large audio file smaller by compressing all the data, right? So it's kind of squeezing it down, and what it's doing is it's trying to remove duplicated data to essentially provides an overview of what's recorded, right? So it's kind of sampling what's been recorded and figuring out, hey, you know what, there isn't that big of a difference there, or there's a bit of a pause. So I'm going to compress some of that data and squeeze some of it out to kind of sample. So, not getting data constantly. So the compression is, it could be like a 4:1 or 5:1, and it doesn't really tell us exactly what it is, but the point is it's going to be compressed. So the quality is going to be a little bit less, but we can record longer files. So that's important, especially like, for example, the iPad that I'm demoing with, it's a 32 gig total hard drive space, the storage space on it. So it's not huge. So that could be important. If you're doing a lot of audio recording, you might want to stay on the compressed setting versus the lossless. So lossless, what that happens, it's recording everything in a larger file size, and it ends up resulting in better quality. So it's getting every single nuance and, breath. So that could be really important for vocal recording for music versus perhaps just a quick voice memo, literally, that I'm just sending to remind me of things to do, or a temp voiceover that I'm going to put for a video or film that might get re-recorded again later, right? So just things to think about is, do we need the compressed or do we need the lossless, right? And what the differences are between the two. So again, that's an option, and it's in that settings field, right? So if we just look at it here, just going to get a little bit closer here. There we go, right? So I can just go compressed or I go lossless, and then it automatically will record in that manner, right? So we can just give that a look. Let's go to lossless. I'm going to go back to the voice memo, and what I'll do is let's record another one. Okay, so we'll record another one with lossless, and we'll see if we can tell the difference. So here we go, recording. This is a recording. Check 1, 2. This is recording. We are now recording with the lossless setting. Okay, hit done. And let's give that a listen back and just see what it's like. This is a recording. Check 1, 2. This is recording. We are now recording with the lossless setting. Okay, so that was the lossless. And let's go back to the first one. I'm now recording. So this is a recording. Check, check, check. This is a recording. And then I simply can hit, right? So pretty interesting. It's not necessarily that different, but I'm finding I can hear even, a little bit more of the room noise in the lossless. So it's definitely getting a bit more of the total audio quality recorded versus just, the compressed one is almost getting rid of a little bit of the noise. So that's something interesting. And that's an experiment too. Sometimes the compressed can actually end up having a little bit less noise in the room noise because it's compressing that kind of ambient sound, right? The ambiance of the fans running, in this case, with some of the computers and cameras running here. The lossless seems to pick it up a bit more, and the compressed is kind of getting rid of it because it's saying, hey, that's a constant. I'm not going to worry about that in my data, right? So you know, a little bit of a something we can stumble upon is that by trying out both settings, I encourage that with every kind of app on an iPad. Try a few of the settings, and then you might see, hey, you know, this works better for this, or it reduces some noise, and we can find out a few things like that. So that's always kind of a neat aspect, that we can discover a few things that way. Okay, so let's continue here. So compress versus lossless. Again, if there's any questions, let me know about that for the Q&A. So now GarageBand. So this is a great kind of, you know, tool that's been around for a long time as an app. Comes with basically all the Apple products. So it's free. So it comes on your iPad, iPhone, even the Macs. So all the desktop computers come with this as well. And you know, it's a really cool tool because you're recording vocals and instruments, and you can add. We'll look at how you can input and output devices too, but it lets us start to record vocals, right? So what kind of vocals and what we how we want to deal with that. So let's go to that. So I'm going to go right to the iPad here. So I'm going to quit out of the voice memos. I'm going to just scroll over to GarageBand. So I'm going to open that up. Okay. And here we go. So what I'll do is let me just go back here. So there's a couple tabs on the thing here. So we have like a track volume. There's some compressors and echo, reverb, and things, so we can play with, you know, how we want it to sound. And again, a lot of these things we'll be addressing in future workshops too, because there's a whole real art and science to some of these, the pitch control and compression factors and all this kind of stuff. So you know, we're gonna do that. So let me just go back here. So I'm gonna just create a new song. Okay, so I'm going to go to audio recorder. So, you know, just track. So I'm going to go here. Let's use the audio recorder setting. So what's great about this is by going right into this, it lets me choose between voice and an instrument, right? So what can happen is we can actually use the built-in microphone to even record a guitar. So an acoustic guitar can be recorded with the iPad without any other microphone. So it's a really great tool to create your demo recordings of music or vocals, right? So in this case, I'm going to just go right to voice. So I'm going to hit voice, and then it's going to pop up as here's lead vocals, right? So right now the monitor's off, and what that's doing is the monitor's off. In this case, you'll see right down here it says off, and it's important to have it off if I'm recording here, because what would happen is the microphone is taking the input, and then the speaker would be outputting. So you get what's called feedback, because then the speaker is hearing the microphone, right? So what we want to do is just record straight. And what's really neat here is it's pretty visual. So check, 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 check. And you can see how loud I can get really by getting close to it and you know, kind of yelling into the microphone. And what I can do is I can actually just set this level up higher, right? So now I can go really loud, check, check, check. And what it's doing is there's something here called the compressor. And what the compressor in this case is, unlike what we talked about before with compressing data, what we're doing now is we're compressing the audio signal to ensure that I don't peak, right? So this tool lets me really ensure that I don't end up, you know, over saturating the signal, right? So even if I'm screaming, you can see that it's not going to peak to the red, right? And if I lower the compressor, check, 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 right? You can see I get pretty high up, right? So it's designed to really, you know, monitor what you're doing and not let you over record the level, right? So it's you know, a limiting factor that's happening here. Okay, so same idea. We use the red circle is always our record button, and that lets us to, you know, lets us record the vocal and go from there. So let me give this a sample here. So I'm just going to hit record. Check 1 2, check check 1 2. This is a test. This is a test. Check check check. Okay, so I'm going to hit stop. So that's great. Okay, and now what I'll do is let's actually play it back and just see how that can work. So I'm just going to turn the monitoring on for that. Okay, and we're going to play it back. Check 1 2, check check 1 2. This is a test. This is a test. Check check check. Okay, and what we can hear there too is there's a metronome, right? So that's great because we can actually pace our vocals even if we don't have drums or anything. And that lets us know, go to a steady beat, right? So if I go to that metronome setting, I can turn it off by simply, see it's blue or it's off, right? So it's kind of an on-off toggle. So if I turn it off now, let's play it back again. So go back to the beginning here. Check 1 2, check 1 2. This is a test. This is a test. Check. Right, so that was great. So what happens there is we are getting the metronome can go on or off, right? So that's just a 4/4. Again, we're not going to get into all the music timing and things. We're going to have more webinars on that. But this is just the essentials. Like how do we get into recording? We can use the metronome. We can turn it on or off, right? So it's a great tool there, right? So you can see that there's two settings on the top here too. There's studio, there's fun. Right, so fun, we can actually go into these like robotic voices. So we can do different things. So right now it's clean, right? I can go to a robot. So let's choose that one. Okay, I'm gonna record a little bit with that. This is a robot voice. Check. This is a robot. I am now a robot. Okay, so let's play that back and see what that's like.
This is a robot. I am now a robot.
Right, so super fun. It lets us, use different types of settings. So there's megaphones. There's like a squirrel, alien, robot. Right, so real fun way to get, different types of special effects essentially recorded onto our vocal tracks as well. Right, so it's really a neat way to do that. Right, so let's let's move on to some of the input and output devices. So beyond just that, we can go to something that's called an input-output device. So we've been using the internal built-in microphone on the iPad. What we can also do is we can add what's called an I/O device or an input-output device, and that could let us have more options for inputting things. So we can then go directly into the iPad, and it considers it like a USB plugin. So that USB plugin can be a simple way to just plug in to a guitar or other microphones, right? So you can see just on the bottom right here, there's just a little Focusrite Scarlett that can be connected like through USB, and it lets us plug in what's called XLR cables, right? So that some of the microphones can work like that. Some of them work with 1/4 inch on 1/8 inch. So what does that all mean? So let me bring this up here. So I'm gonna just show, here's a little input output device. So it's a tiny device, and this is a iTrack 1 Pre, it's called. Really simple square. This cable will actually just plug right into the iPad. So it's really simple to use. Then we have what's called a gain switch here, right? So the gain can go basically up or down. And then we have something called a phantom power. And phantom power is basically adding power to a microphone if it requires the power. And that power, 48 volts, lets the microphone become activated so it can record the vocals and sounds to then go into the iPad. So we simply can turn it on or off. And once this is plugged into the iPad, which I'll demo, it turns on, and then it directly can record into something like GarageBand. So we can then record. And now the XLR cable, this is what an XLR cable is. So I'm just going to bring it closer to the camera here. So this XLR cable is a 3-prong cable. And what it does is it has like a positive, a negative, and it has a ground. So what that does is it shields audio from getting electrical hum, because a lot of times a lot of these cables can be all over the place. It might be, you might have an electrical cable on top, and that allows it to shield from any kind of interference or hums. So sometimes if you're recording, you start to hear a little bit of electrical hum. An XLR cable can be a really great solution. And what this does is, this is a multi-input. So what we can do then is we can put in the XLR right into the back of this. And now this fancy XLR cable that's grounded goes digitally to the iPad with this cable, and that becomes our input-output device. And again, we have a gain here, so essentially we can make things quieter or softer, so we can boost the signal, reduce the signal as we wish to. And the great thing about this XLR is that we can also, I'm just going to grab this headphone jack here. So this is what's called a 1/4 inch. And this is really, if anyone's familiar with, guitar amps and things, right? This kind of a line jack is really, familiar for most of you. So this will be a 1/4 inch, and that can also plug into a unit like this. So this is a multi, so it takes the XLR and it also takes the 1/4 inch. On top of that, there's also the 1/8 inch, and this is really a familiar type of connector. The 1/8 inch is really what we use in most headphones. So a lot of iPads, this is the jack they have for headphones. And then there's also microphones that can be used, even like the one I'm talking through to you guys right now. That kind of a 1/8 inch microphone can be input to some of these devices too. So you may need an adapter, or you can get an input-output device that actually allows you to use either or. Okay, so let's move on to, let's look at how we can plug in the Focusrite, the iTrack 1, and the mini input-output device. So you can see how simple it can be, so small, very portable. You could be recording this anywhere, right? In your home, you can be at a cottage, you can be in even a coffee shop, you can be writing and recording a little bit of music. So it's quite portable. And they can be quite larger too. So as you can see in this picture, it's a little bit of a larger unit that will be about 4 or 5 times the size of this little square, and that can work a bit differently. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, so I went from fun, I'm going to go back to studio, right? So we're just here recording our vocals, and what we want to do now is I'm going to just switch over to the camera here so that we can actually see the iPad in action. I'm just going to unplug its connection for video because we don't need that. So now what we're going to do is, you can see the port right here, right? And this is the charging port. This is also, our speakers are down here. So our charging port is right here, and that's what we can use to plug in these accessories. So it's like a USB port, but it's also a charging port for iPads. Again, the camera's right here at the top, right? And our microphone is right there at the top, right? So that's our internal microphone. So now what we're going to do is we want to be able to plug in this little box into the iPad. So let's do that. And then we'll plug in the microphone. So I'm going to go right here, plug this in right here. And then what's going to happen is it's going to say, hey, you have an audio device connected. So I'm hoping everyone can see that audio device is connected. So that's great. So then it's going to say, hey, do you want to turn on monitoring? So I'm going to just turn that on, but usually you'd have some headphones on as well. So you can see now the power light is on, and we're ready to add our XLR cable that I had right down here. So I'm going to take the microphone, the XLR cable, right? I'm going to plug that right in. Oops, and we're getting a little bit of feedback. Okay, and the nice thing is now we have this microphone is also plugged in to the other end of the XLR, right? So we have this kind of a microphone that has the XLR. I'm going to click that in, check, check, check. And you can see how now I'm getting levels, check, check, check. And I'm going to turn the monitor off just so that we don't get distorted. So check, 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 check 1, 2, check, check, right? And you can see how this device, the green light is going on every time I talk. So it's a really user-friendly, intuitive device. And so this is what's called a Shure SM57 microphone. It's kind of a robust microphone. It can be for vocals or instrument recording like drums and things like this, right? So again, all I'm doing here is I'm going to be able to check, 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 and I can adjust my levels with the gain now, right? So now what happens is, because I have a USB device, I'm no longer able to adjust anything on the iPad, but I just adjust everything here with this gain. So I can simply go, let me just get this a little bit closer here. I can simply go up or down with the gain, check, 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 right? And it gets me to the right kind of level, check, check, check. And red means I'm clipping, check, 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 right? So it's a really user-friendly interface. So green is good, red is bad, right? So we just go, it's kind of a warning, stop, lower it, right? So check, check, check. Here is a check, 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 microphone check. So let's do the same thing. So I'm just going to go and record here. So I'm going to hit record on the iPad. Check, check, microphone check, 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 1, 2, check, 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 check. This is a microphone check, check, check. Okay, so that's great. So we just recorded there. And now I'm just going to switch this over. So I'm just going to go back to the actual iPad monitor. So I'm going to unplug my input-output device, right? Again, really simple just to connect it into that charge port. And what I'm going to do next is I just got to get my HDMI cable. So I'm just going to, again, these connectors are pretty universal. They can be for, monitoring. So I'm just going to plug this in so everybody can see. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the device. And there we go. So now what I can do is I can actually play it back. So here, let's go back here. And we're going to hear what I recorded. Let's give it a listen. This is a robot. I am now a robot. Check, 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 1, 2, check, 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 check. This check. So you can see, let's play this back from the beginning. 1, 2, check, check, 1, 2. You can hear all the room noise that's happening, right? So it's interesting because, you get all that ambient noise happening. And then as I go forward here, check, 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 1, 2, check, 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 check. This check, 1, 2, check, check. Right, so you guys can, if you can hear that difference, it's huge, right? So being able to have kind of that overall room, it's getting all that noise, right? And then getting into the more, what it's doing is it's being a more directional, right? So what happens is with a microphone, right, like this kind of a microphone, it's very directional. So it's only getting the audio from my mouth instead of what the iPad's doing is getting more of a overall ambient recording, right? So a very different approach to the microphone. So this is very specific and cleaner. We're not getting all the fan noise, and you can hear the internal microphone was a lot more noisier, right? So it's kind of an interesting trade-off. Same thing here is as I'm talking to you guys, I'm actually using what's called a lavalier mic, right? So this little mic is quite useful, right? So this, you see this a lot in like news and things. So this can just be clipped onto a shirt like I have, and then you're just talking into that directly. And again, it's very directional, so it's not getting a lot of the room noise. So that's why you can kind of hear me without a lot of the room noise versus with the iPad, you get more noise, right? So what can we do to deal with that, right? So we kind of have this, input. So the internal microphone versus the external microphone. The question, what can you use, right? So the iPad's internal microphone, it is perfect for overall vocal recording, for voiceovers, podcasts, music, vocal demos, right? And you can also record an acoustic guitar, right? And there's filtration. So there's a lot of fun things you can do, robots like we tried. And it's pretty neat to play around with that. So it's a great, robust overall microphone. But you can see in playing back those two samples, what a difference that made in terms of the overall room noise and less room noise, right? So the external microphone, one that you can plug in, you get more benefits because you can get the better quality, better vocal recording, and it will be less filled with the ambient sound of the room, right? So that's a real big plus. How do we record things that have, a lot less ambient sound in the room? And that's what we can do. You can hear that huge difference between our input microphone versus that built-in internal microphone, the iPad. It's getting a lot of ambient noise. Now, we might not all have access to something like that. They're not very expensive, so you can get input devices for as low as $20. You can spend, $500. So there's quite a variety of the type of equipment. But sometimes we want to just record with our iPad, and again, it has a really good microphone built in. So what can we do? Right, so optimum recording environments. So here's what we can do to help the situation. So right now I'm in a bit of a larger room, so the external microphone kind of picks up the ambience. I'm also next to computers running with fans and cameras that have fans, so a lot of fan noise that you can hear in the iPad's recording. So that's the first thing, is how do we get rid of that kind of all that noise, right? So finding a quiet room. Can you go into a smaller bedroom? You can even go into something like a closet. Closing the closet door can oftentimes get rid of a lot of the noise of fans and computers, right? So going away from your computers and desktop computers, the iPad doesn't make any sound, which is great. So it's a really quiet device, so it's not going to add noise. But my other computer, my desktop computer, is adding a lot of fan noise. So that's the idea. Get away from that. Less echo. So going to a smaller room that has potentially less echo. So usually, bathrooms will have porcelain, more echo, more ambience, right? So wood is really good for deflecting that kind of bounce of sound on walls. So if you have, kind of a wood paneling room or in front of some wood doors and things. So again, a closet with a door can work really well. So it's less echo, less reverb, less roomy is oftentimes what we call it. Just a less roomy sound can be really beneficial to using the iPad recording directly. Then some of the other techniques that I recommend, and some people have been asking, especially with people working from home now, how do you record better sound? So what you can do too is you can actually add a blanket or sweater, and you can put that right over your head. So you can put the iPad and yourself under a blanket, and then what you're getting is really clean sound, because the blanket, sometimes even referred to as sound blankets in the video world, putting sound blankets around can block all of that unwanted noise. So you can put a blanket on top of stuff. So if there's like a fan or a ventilator that you want to reduce the sound, right? So again, think about where you are. So again, a kitchen could be filled with a lot of appliances, refrigerators turning on or off. If you're an air conditioning is running in a window, you don't want to be in that same room. You're going to hear all of that. So by literally taking, you can take a blanket, put it over your head. You can have the iPad underneath you like so, and then you can be recording your audio, right? So, the closer you are, the better the quality is going to be, because the microphone is, not picking too much stuff up. Remember, the microphone's right up here, right? So if you're talking really far away, like so, it could be really distant versus if I'm closer, right? And again, we want to make sure it is going to deal with the limiting, so we're not, clipping that over recorded too loud signal, the red signal. So, an optimum distance, probably a few inches, or, maybe 5 or 6 centimeters would be the closest you'd really want to be to the iPad. But it is, again, designed to get really good overall ambient sound. If I put myself away from the iPad, a blanket, a sweater, something like that, that's what we've been advising in terms of people wanting to record from home, to do it that way, right? So that's really the best tips I can offer is, to stay in a quiet room, less of a reverb room. And then if you do want to go into some sort of an input-output device, we can go back to that using the external microphone. There can be a lot of great benefits to using that external microphone. Okay, so multiple takes. One of our last takeaways for today. Multiple takes for sound editing can be really important, because if you're recording any audio, it's a good idea to record a few takes, because then when you have a few takes, you can choose from them later. So, even if you make a mistake when you're recording a voiceover, for example, like on a podcast or a voiceover for a film, you might want to have multiple takes, because if you make a mistake, and you can always improve it and get that take right. Right? So also with a vocal track for a song, if you try a few takes, usually, the takes get better, and also you end up with different takes. So better takes, different takes, multiple takes, right? So it's all, that is your friend in terms of getting a variety, and more is always helpful when you get into sound editing or sending the files over to someone. So if you did a voiceover, let's say for a film or a documentary film, having a few takes doesn't hurt, because then there's some options. If you're doing a vocal demo for a music track for a song, having a few takes, you can usually get warmed up, might be better. And hey, sometimes the first take is great, right? So that's okay too. But multiple takes, don't be afraid of doing multiple takes, because they really are your friend in the sound recording world. And also you can, as we talked about the environment, you can also do multiple takes in different environments. So if you think one room has too much echo, try another room, and then you have a few options to see, hey, this one has a little bit less echo, this one has a little bit less fan noise, and then you get different takes, different room takes, right? So that's always a great option too. Excellent. Okay, so that takes us through our exploration of sound recording with the iPad. So thanks again for joining us here. I'm just going to look at some of the questions now, and we can address some of those questions. So I have a couple of questions here. Okay, so could the voice memo be used with the compressed version for 1 hour more? So in terms of recording, so the compressed version, yeah, you can definitely, I'm not aware of any limits for the iPad audio recording, except the capacity of your iPad storage, right? So audio is not a really large file. So for example, 1 hour of video could take, let's say 10 gigs of data, or 6 to 10 gigs of data in like a higher quality video format. But with audio, that could 1 hour would be maybe 60 megabytes, right? So significantly smaller in file size. So it definitely wouldn't usually be an issue. And with the next question here, to record interviews, which is better, the voice memo or the GarageBand? So GarageBand has some sometimes it has some length restrictions, but GarageBand lets you do some more filters. So you can definitely get more settings, and you have the leveling tool. So in terms of recording interviews for audio, GarageBand's a great tool to use, but it definitely requires some trial and error and testing to make sure you can record the right length you want, and also to get the right kind of settings in your input. But what's great, again, if we look at the fact that we can adjust our level up or down, right? We don't really have that in the voice memo. It just kind of records, right? Then we have we can put a little bit of reverb here. So this is like a vocal hall, so it's already adding a little bit of reverb, tone, right? So there's a little bit of this adjustments, which are really great in GarageBand, and we see that level, and it's really adjustable. So as you're recording, you can even adjust it as well, which is a great tool. So it's not just recording straight, you can actually record and adjust as you go. So yeah, really, really great questions there. So I would definitely recommend, the voice memo is great for your own personal recordings. And then I would say GarageBand could be really great for recording other people. If you're, somewhere, like the question here asks, doing a recording in a coffee shop with someone or interviewing someone, the GarageBand can work well, just with those extra leveling features. Again, there's many other apps that you can explore. The basic principles are the same. There's a input level, like how loud or how quiet do you make it, and but these are the ones that are totally part of every iPad as you get it. So there's no need to find it, load it. It all comes pre-installed. Voice Memo, GarageBand, great tools. And there's many other tools out there as well. A lot of free sound recording apps and different things that will have different tools and all that. But the main thing is, what we're really looking at is getting something for the interview type recording. We can have the leveling going up or down, and we record, and then we can share it and output it, right? So that's really the main thing we're looking at to do. So that's excellent. So if there aren't any more questions, I will wrap it up there. So again, thanks again for joining us. It was a great live webinar, and you can visit us at events.tbmcs.ca to sign up for more of these webinars. We have an exciting podcasting multi-week series that will start this Friday, and it will be available on our YouTube channel that you can access through our website as well, tbmcs.ca, and our YouTube channel is accessible through that. So it's going to be a multi-week podcast session workshop that will basically teach you how to write, record, and edit an audio podcast with your friends and family. So it's a great workshop to check out as well. Okay, so that's it for today. And thanks again. And again, check us out for some more workshops, and have a great rest of the day.